Hey everyone, I'm James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them I can. Sorry for being away last week. The voice was not doing so good. You guys know I coach hockey for my son, and you got to use your voice a little bit, right? And all the kids, they don't necessarily know which position to go to. That's something I'm working on as a coach. So last week, my voice was toast. I had to take a couple days off, but we're almost back to 100%. We're at maybe we're at 98%. I think it sounds pretty good for the most part. But I got my water here anyways in case we want to stay hydrated. But today's show, we'll obviously talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. A lot has happened since the last time we did this show. I was completely dead wrong on my Stanley Cup prediction. It was Edmonton and Florida getting in the Stanley Cup Finals. My prediction was Dallas and New York. That did not end up happening. We'll talk a bit about how we got here as far as Edmonton and Florida making it to the finals. We'll preview the finals, some things to take a look at. We'll also talk about some news. There's a lot of coaching things going on. Obviously, free agency is going to be coming up here before we know it. We are in June now. Free agency will be opening July 1st. So a lot to get into on the show. But like we always do here on the show, we're going to start first with having a look at the content here on the Fanatics View channel. My guy Taylor doing a great job. So a lot of people wanting to know what is going on with the Dallas Stars in their offseason. Obviously, a disappointing performance against Edmonton with them getting ousted of the playoffs. They were the betting favorite going in. So a lot of really good stuff here from my guy Taylor. We got Joe Pavelski. What's his future going to look like? Obviously, towards the tail end of his career. Matt Duchene's a free agent. He's probably going to get a bump in pay. Remember, he was sort of on a team-friendly deal this year with Dallas. Will they be able to retain him? Does he want to go elsewhere? Something I was hearing yesterday on the radio was Duchene kind of likes being out of the spotlight. So maybe that leads him to play for an American team where there's not going to be as much coverage. Pete DeBoer, we obviously know, we haven't talked about this, but his snapping back at that reporter, I believe it was before game 5, or after game 5, I should say. So that was pretty interesting. So Pete DeBoer talking to the media, Wyatt Johnson, who's been a good addition for them. Chris Tanev, one of the high-priced free agents in the offseason. Obviously some stuff from him. And then Jake Ottinger as well, who I'll be honest, a bit of hit or miss in this playoffs or in that series with Edmonton. It was a bit weird that, like I said, if we would have sort of predicted the series going in, a lot of people felt like the goaltending battle would have been won by Jake Ottinger. I think Stuart Skinner outplayed him, honestly, overall. And, it's not all on Ottinger. There's a lot of things that happen, but that's sort of where we're there. And then we got a 40-minute media availability from the Edmonton Oilers. So check this out. Great job again from Taylor to get all types of stuff going into their series against the Florida Panthers. Well, let's rewind a little bit, guys, and let's have a look at how we got here with the Oilers and the Florida Panthers. So last time we were on here was a couple Wednesdays ago. It was 2 Wednesdays ago. And you'll see there, really that game, I think it was game 3. Again, the Stars had won. If you remember game 2, the Stars, kind of got some good bounces on Stuart Skinner. Remember the Jason Robertson goal where Skinner was out of position close to the net. He ends up winning it for them. And then game 3 is where things really, that was game 3, not game 2. My bad. Game 3 was the one where Jason Robertson scored the post goal. And then after that, it was all Edmonton. That game after 5-2, Dallas getting badly outshot. It was weird. It almost looked like the Canucks series because the Stars barely getting any shots on net. You look at it there, Jake Ottinger, 24 saves on 28 shots. And then you had the Oilers only having to make 20 saves. You're not out shooting your team. So again, the Stars, not a lot of offense in that game. That cost them that game. And then obviously, game 5 as well was another one where, again, the Stars looking pretty lifeless out there. Again, 23 or 26 shots on net. Or sorry, that was the Oilers. The Oilers, only having to make Stuart Skinner only having to make 19 saves in that effort out of 20. So again, not a lot of offense there. My personal opinion, I think the series was kind of decided when Chris Tanev was injured. I know he ended up playing anyways, but I think him not being 100% was certainly a factor in the series. But credit to Edmonton, their power play looked great, took advantage of a lot of situations, and they just looked fast. And there was guys that stepped up. Evan Bouchard looked great, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They had players really elevate their games in this series, and that's why they're in the final. And full credit to Edmonton. You guys know I'm not a big Edmonton Oilers fan, but listen, they played a great series against Dallas, and they took it to them. And again, Edmonton winning this in 6, very impressive. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about the Florida Panthers real quick. The Panthers, There was just a point where you could just see the Rangers were at a gas, and that sort of happened early on. So obviously Panthers winning game 1, Rangers winning game 2, Rangers then winning game 3 in overtime, but it was a game they were outplayed. And then after that, Florida just took over, ends up winning the series again in 6 games. And, this series could have been a lot different in terms of it being even more dominant for Florida. I think the only reason the scores were the way they were was because of Shesterkin. Like, realistically, the Panthers were really, dominating the series. They sort of took over. You look at it there, the amount of saves that Shesterkin had to make, 34 shots he had to face, whereas on the flip side with the Panthers, just 24. Similar story, right? Like, if you're not getting a lot of offense, you're probably not going to win a lot of games. So same thing on this game. Bobrovsky, 27 saves on his end, but on the Rangers, again, getting outshot, 36-27. So that was again a thing where, and I could just tell. I mean, I knew after game 3, it was like the Rangers they have to do something different, and they never recovered, and the Panthers just took over. I know they, at the end they were trying to make some effort there with the goals, but the Panthers just looked too good. A lot of guys really elevating their games in this series as well. How about Gustav Forsling looking like, a legit number 1 defenseman in that series. And then you got Bobrovsky, who's playing as well as he is too. So again, these are 2 well-deserved teams making the finals. It's going to be a fun one. Again, not the matchup. Like, I think, again, if you were to look at what the NHL wants, they probably would have wanted Edmonton and New York, because those are 2 big markets. But, Florida, going back, credit to them. They were in the finals last year. They made it back this year. And I think you see a lot of the team coming together at the right time. So this is the series we have now. We did put a poll question up here on the Fanatics View channel of who's going to win the Stanley Cup in the comments. So right now, 53% of Oilers fans, or 53% saying the Edmonton Oilers are going to win the series. They are currently the underdog right now. If we go look on Bodog here, and you'll see under the hockey tab, we'll go through some futures as well. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I do see some questions for you guys. We'll get to those in a second. You look at it there, the Panthers slight favorites here, minus 135. Actually, no, that's game 1. The actual series. What do we have here? I think this is this the series, or that's the, or is that the actual? Okay, so that's game 1. I think this is the actual series. Either way, the Panthers are favored. They're favored in both. So they're favored, obviously, in the series, and then they're favored in game 1 as well. Edmonton, the underdogs, which I think makes sense. If you look at the overall season, the Panthers did play better. The Panthers will look a little bit more dominant. And I'd argue as well that the Panthers have had a tougher road to get to where they are, having to go through, a number of different teams to get here. Kind of blanking right now on who they faced. I don't know why. But if you look at the Bruins, the Bruins are always tough. And the Tampa Bay Lightning, that was a team where a lot of people didn't know what was going to happen with them in the playoffs, because again, they were a former Cup winner. They have a pretty deep roster, not as deep as in years past, but whenever you got a goaltending like Vasilevsky, and they have guys that can play on both ends, it was going to be a close series, so the Panthers took care of them. The Bruins, I would argue, are very tough. And then the Rangers as well, another team that was favored to win the Stanley Cup. The Panthers take them out too. So credit to Florida for going through that. I'd say, as far as Edmonton, they played LA. I think there was a foregone conclusion that they were going to beat LA. LA has no offense. So if you have no offense, you're not going to beat Edmonton, and you can't out-defend Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So I think that was sort of a given. Second round series was tough. I still think that could have gone either way between the Canucks and Oilers. And then the Dallas Stars, very good team as well. But again, I think some injury issues really sort of prevented the Stars from playing at their best. But that's this time of year. You have to play through injuries. You have to persevere, and they weren't able to do it. But yeah, I would argue that the Panthers had the tougher road. I would say that, the Lightning, Bruins, and Rangers are tougher than LA, Vancouver, and Dallas personally. So, but that, none of that matters. It just matters how they're going to perform. So game 1 going down on Saturday. We got to wait a little bit for this, and it should be really interesting to see sort of what happens there. So let's get to your questions, everyone. Again, I've been rambling on here a little bit. Frank Saravelli said Martin Necas will most likely be traded before the finals start to either Columbus Blue Jackets, Vancouver, or Calgary. Carolina wants prospects in return, so who could be on the table? Well, let me ask you, Troy, I think last time you came on here, obviously, Troy, you're a Blue Jackets fan. You mentioned that the Blue Jackets not only have some cap space, but they also have some prospects. What would that look like going back? From everything I'm hearing, because I do pay attention to a lot of the Vancouver stuff that's going on here, what I'm hearing is the Canucks will not have enough of a package to give to Carolina to get Martin Necas. Obviously, he's, so people don't know. We talked about this before, but obviously he wants a trade. He wants more playing time. He's a restricted free agent. So obviously whoever requires them is going to have to pay him and sign him to a long-term deal. So those are all things that are going to be factored in. But Netchus is one of the, I mean, everyone that has sort of talked about him has talked about the potential about him being, a breakthrough star, and he's young and he's, have a less cap hit than some other guys. So I think it's worth the risk. If Vancouver's going to trade him, they're likely going to have to part with either Tom Willander or Jonathan Lekaramaki. It does not sound like management wants to do that. I know the Canes have had interest in Niels Höglander, but that is not even close to getting it done. They'd have to do Höglander and maybe another like blue chip prospect and then maybe a pick, but the Canucks are out of picks. They've traded their second round picks. They traded their first round pick this year in the Elias Lindholm trade. So I don't think the Canucks will get it done. Calgary's been stocking up some picks, but I'll be honest, I don't really know what type of package they could put together either. I'm trying to think of like, up and comers. They did get Hunter Bushkevich from the Canucks in that in the Lindholm deal as well. So maybe that's an asset. They also have the Canucks first round pick, so maybe they could do something there. But it'll be interesting. It's got to be a team that's got some prospects and it's got some cap space as well. Because remember, if you're going to sign Martin Netchus, it's got to be someone that has a bit of space, because the idea is he's going to re-sign there. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. That would be crazy if they could make a trade before the finals, but I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath. So you're absolutely right. Netchus would be a great fit in Vancouver because he can play center or wing. And the idea is if you play him at wing, you can play with Pettersson. That would be perfect. But some people have talked about Filip Hronek. I mean, here's the problem with that, because we were talking about Hronek, I think, a couple weeks ago. You still have to replace Hronek. And like, who do you get as a young right shot defenseman? Like, as much as I don't want to pay Hronek $8 million, how the hell do you replace him? Like, even if you brought in a Tanev or someone else, like, I don't know, that's a big risk. Like, I think, and not only that, Quinn Hughes playing his best season. Do you want to mess with that chemistry with him and Hronek? I don't know, but I think, Hronek's maybe another name you could throw out there, but I don't think Carolina needs Filip Hronek. I know they have a couple defensemen on expiring contracts, but they also have, a lot of guys on the back end already. So I don't think it's something they necessarily need. That could be an option. But yeah, again, if I'm a betting man right now, although, Patrick Allvin has surprised me before, I would say that I don't think the Canucks will get it done. So yeah, who are some of the prospects that they have, Troy? That would be a better question for you. With the Rangers looking to extend Laffy and Igor after next season, do you think they will part? Who do you think they will part ways this offseason? So I was hearing yesterday that Capo Caco could be on the block. There's been some issues there with him on that team. Obviously a first round pick. That could be an option. Do they maybe look at trading like a Braden Schneider? I don't know. They have to make some changes. And as far as their cap outlook, let's go have a quick look at that actually. If we look at it here, the Rangers have got about $11 million in cap space. But if you look at, like, they got a couple RFAs. They got, like you said, Lafreniere is going to get a bump from his $2 million. You've got Matt Rempe. Well, I mean, obviously Rempe is not going to get paid a lot. So you got a couple guys there. You got a couple, Jack Roslovic, who didn't really do a whole lot for them in the playoffs. He's a UFA. Do you bring him back? He's 27 years old. He's probably looking for a nice contract. And then you got a couple other guys locked up. You got Panarin will be, he's got 2 more seasons. Zibanejad's locked up. Kreider's locked up. Trocheck's locked up. That Trocheck contract looking great. You've got Chickle as well. I think I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Philip. We'll just call him Philip. He's obviously signed for a little bit longer. So you've got that. And then on the back end, like I said, you got Braden Schneider's an RFA. That'll be appealing. He's a right shot defenseman. If the Rangers are looking to get rid of him, they'll get a good return for that, because right shot defensemen are very tough. Again, Capo is also an RFA. He's 23 years old, but again, hasn't really put up the numbers you'd like. So yeah, I would look at some of these names as well. And then I didn't realize Shesterkin's in the last year of his deal too. He's going to get a bump. I didn't realize Shesterkin's only on a $5.6 million contract. That's like Demko. He's worth at least like $10 million. Like, he should be getting, like, mind you, like, who's going to go out and fork out that? The Rangers are probably going to have to. So he's 28. You don't want to sign him too long, but yeah, one more season with Shesterkin. I didn't realize that. So that may be a bit of a factor here as well. So yeah, if I had to guess, I think they'll get rid of one of their RFAs. Like, I think I could see a Kako getting traded or someone along those lines. We'll see. Bummed Carolina's going to lose him. He's a great player. They'll get a good return though. I wouldn't be too bummed about that. Biggest surprise of the playoffs so far and biggest letdown. Biggest surprise, I don't think the Oilers should be too much of a surprise, even though I counted them out. But I would say, I'm just trying to think here. I'd say maybe the Rangers getting dominated the way they did against Florida. I think that was surprising, to be honest. And then maybe like if you look at like the regular season, like the Panthers were good. The Oilers were pretty good. The Oilers were one of the best second half teams in the league. So not too surprising there. Yeah, I don't think there was that many surprises this year, if I'm being honest. You guys let me know. You guys watch this as well. Was there anything that sort of stood out? To me, it's, that's been one of them. I'd say maybe Evan Bouchard elevating his game. That was something that I wasn't sure we would see, because I think earlier in the year he actually wasn't playing that well. And then on the Florida side of things, Forsling, obviously, I mean, he was good, but I mean, now he looks like really legit. Jordan Numis, Corson, Colmus, Kent Johnson, Adam Boquist, Hunter McCowan, Luca, someone last name, are realistic to be traded. I told you this before. I'd love the Canucks to get Kent Johnson. There's only a way we could do it. I don't know how we would do it. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's just it. You guys have a good prospects board. And we'll see what Don Waddell decides to do. These are new. So Don Waddell's the president of, what did Waddell get hired for? He said presidents of hockey operations, right? Hired as so he's the general manager and the presidents of operations, so he's both. Okay, so yeah, he'll make some deals. If you remember, Don Waddell was in Carolina before, and then he was with Atlanta before that, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think he had a pit stop somewhere else, if I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I would expect Columbus to be very active, and then we got to see what's going on with Utah. It's going to be a very, very interesting offseason as far as some of the things that are going on there. But let's get back quickly to the Cup final with the Panthers and the Oilers. Let's go to Daily Faceoff and have a look at the lineups for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let's go to teams. Line combos. There we go. And we're going to go with the Florida Panthers. And then we're going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about, the strengths and weaknesses of each team. Let's have a look here. Okay, first let's look at the Oilers right now. I think these lines are off a little bit because you've got first line with Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman. I believe Nugent Hopkins is, I think, third line, but who knows? Maybe they're switching things up a little bit. So you can see there Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Hyman. McDavid and Nugent Hopkins, obviously high round draft pick. Zach Hyman looking like one of the best contracts in hockey right now. He's playing outstanding. Was not expected to be this offensively good for them. And then you've got a second line of Draisaitl, Perry, and McLeod. You get some experience there, obviously, with Perry. Cup win. I believe, yeah, he's won a cup. So good experience guy there. Draisaitl, obviously great. And then this third line's not bad either. I mean, to have Evander Kane on your third line, this was a guy at one point was a first line, player for the San Jose Sharks. Got Henrique back there as the third line center, and then Dylan Holloway as their young players look really good. And then your last line of Connor Brown, Derek Ryan, and Janmark looking quite good. Your defensive pairing, Ekholm and Bouchard, probably the best defense. Well, I mean, that's debatable. We can talk about that on the Florida side of things, but Ekholm and Bouchard, about as good as it's going to get in the playoffs. You got Nurse and Kulak. Nurse has been sort of hit or miss. And then you got Broberg and Ceci, maybe not as what you would like back there, but a pretty solid outing there. And then obviously in net, you've got Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. And both have had action. Obviously, Pickard had a bit of action in the Canucks series. Now, on the Florida side of things, this is about as stacked as it gets. Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart. I mean, Reinhart's looked outstanding. Barkov, obviously a force as well. And then you got your second line is Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Evan Rodriguez. That's great too. This is where things drop off a little bit. But even then, you got Vladimir Tarasenko, one of their big acquisitions, on your third line with Anton Lundell. And then your final line there with Oposko, who again used to be a first-line player back in the day. Kevin Steinland and Steven Lorentz. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about these guys on the lower lines. I got to watch a little bit more. But I mean, these two lines, like the forward lines, I mean, okay, obviously you have McDavid and Draisaitl as being sort of your staples on the Oilers. But I would say that Florida's a little bit deeper on the forward side of things, like top to bottom. I mean, again, you got Tarasenko on your third line. I mean, that's a luxury to have. On defense as well, I'd say that you could argue that the defensive edge goes to Florida as well. Forsling, like I said, playing like a first-line defender. He's with Aaron Ekblad, high draft pick, very, very good pairing there. You got Mikola and Montour. Montour, obviously, very outstanding. Also, Montour, a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got OEL, someone I'm very familiar with in Vancouver. Used to play for us. I think he's much suited better in a third line pairing on here. But he's playing with Dmitry Kulikov, who's also very solid for them as well. And then looking at the goaltenders, it is Sergei Bobrovsky and Stolarez. What's going on with Spencer Knight? I guess he's not the backup. Did I get that wrong? I guess so. So maybe he's injured or they just go with Stolarz instead, but I don't think he'll see any action. It's Bobrovsky. I've heard some people out there say that Skinner has the edge in net over Bobrovsky. I disagree. At the end of the day, Skinner's still having some meltdown games. He had, like I said, that one bad game in Dallas. He had a couple bad games against Vancouver. I would give the edge to Bobrovsky. So this is why I think Florida ends up winning this, because I think just overall they are deeper. And the one thing we didn't see a lot of in the Dallas series that we will definitely see in this series is the Panthers being more physical than Dallas was. I kind of felt like Dallas let the Oilers off a hook a little bit. I think Vancouver's a lot more physical with Edmonton, and I think that's something that's going to be keeping an eye on. Now, on the flip side, the Panthers take a lot of penalties, and that's not good because you're facing the best power play in the NHL right now in the Edmonton Oilers. That could be deadly. But, again, I think Bobrovsky's going to play a lot better than Jake Ottinger did for Dallas. So that's where things will get interesting, but expect a pretty physical series here. Panthers are not going to go away without anything. And I think you're going to see some of these guys on the Panthers team really elevate their games, as I'm sure we'll see the same with the Oilers as well. Like I could see a guy like Evander Kane exploding in the finals as well. Just because we haven't seen him do a whole lot in the playoffs so far. This could be a situation where he explodes quite well. So it's going to be a good series. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go Florida Panthers in 6. I think they can get it done. I think the Oilers will maybe win a game or two, but I do think the Panthers, and this isn't, me being anti-Edmonton or anything like that. Like I've been very clear about this. I am going to be cheering for the Panthers. Now, aside from the fact I'm not a big Oilers guy, it also gets back to the fact that they I totally lost my train of thought. Someone just messaged me right now. No, I was going to say that another reason why I want Florida to win. Roberto Luongo was our goaltender for the Vancouver Canucks in 2011. I think the Canucks should have won that year. They blew it. So I'd like to see Roberto Luongo get a cup. Gustav Forsling was drafted by the Canucks. Would like to see him get a cup. And then I'd like to see OEL get a cup. I kind of feel like he got a raw deal in Vancouver. It'd be good to see him win a Stanley Cup after getting bought out last summer, which, for any player is a bit embarrassing, right? I mean, it's nice to get the money, but to get bought out is never a good sign. So I hope he wins too. And those are some other reasons why I'm going with Florida, why I'm cheering for Florida, but I do think they will get it done anyways. Now, in terms of betting this series, I do think there's some value on Edmonton because I do think this is a close series. I think it's 50-50. I think if you're going to bet this, I don't think there's an issue with betting the Oilers. I think if you're going to bet the Panthers, maybe look at some prop bets, whether it's the totals or look at, maybe like series MVP. Like I think Reinhardt's probably a good bet for MVP for the Panthers, as could be Bobrovsky. Look at stuff like that. But there's a lot of different ways you could kind of go about and bet all this. Let's get to some more questions here. Don Waddell said verbatim, there will be 6 to 8 new faces on the roster at the start of the season, which is great. I love hearing that. I like to see the parity in the league. Even for the Canucks, it's going to suck that we're going to probably lose some good players, but if we can replace them with other players and, get a new makeup, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Canucks do next season and kind of show that, the season wasn't a fluke. Bias aside, how would you predict this series to play out? Domination, high scoring, low scoring? Will the star players show, or will depth be the key? I think it's going to be high scoring. I know Bobrovsky obviously has made a lot of saves. I mean, let's look at the Panthers games previously. And usually the total is set at like 6. So did the total even hit there for most of these games? So yeah, low game there, low game there, low game there, low game there. Maybe not then. But then I would argue that, obviously the Oilers are going to have maybe more offense than the Rangers because you got McDavid and Draisaitl, right? So maybe not. Maybe it will be a bit lowering scaries. Now on the flip side with Edmonton, obviously the Edmonton was hitting the over in most of these games as well. When you look at, 5-2, 5-3, earlier in the series, 3-1, 1-2. That's back when Dallas was a little bit more competitive. But once they had Dallas's number, that's when you started the score go up a little bit. So, come to think of it, I don't think it's necessarily a bad bet to take the under. I'm going to maybe walk back on that. Because again, Florida, it's not like Florida scored a ton on the Rangers either, but they had Shesterkin in that. That's the question. Like, will Skinner let in more goals than Shesterkin? You would think so. But then on the flip side, I think Edmonton's going to probably score more on there. So that's interesting. I might, for the first game, I might have a quick look at the totals. And if you're getting, actually, we'll look at it right now. Is it plus money? So the over is minus 117. So I guess they are predicting there to be a high scoring game and all that stuff. So we'll see. I think the over could hit though. I think this is a series where we could see a lot more goals, to answer your question, just because of the offense on both sides of the equation. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So yeah, that's the series. Excited for that one. I will not get to watch it. I'm going camping this weekend, which sucks. So I will catch up when I get back, but I'll try and find a way to somehow see it. I don't know. There's no reception where I am camping, which is a big bummer. So what else do we got? Let's get to some more NHL news. The Ottawa Senators making some coaching changes this summer, getting rid of Jacques Martin, who is, he was just a placeholder, let's be honest here. But if we look at it here, also, yeah, I'm hearing some rumblings about Brady Tkachuk get traded. Like whoever gets him would be a good asset. I think that's another team that you'll see make some moves in the offseason. But Ottawa Senators coaches, you'll see there, they brought in Travis Green, who's previously with the New Jersey Devils, previously with the Vancouver Canucks. I think this is a good hire. I think we talked about this last week, and I am going to get I have a friend of mine who's an Ottawa Senators guy who's like really knows the team well. I think in the off season we'll be doing we'll still do the show, but we'll do maybe like focus on certain teams and talk about free agency and stuff. But I like the hire for Travis Green. That is not Travis Green. That is a grumpy Daniel Alfredsson instead. Alfredsson still being a part of the coaching staff. If people remember, Daniel Alfredsson, former captain of the Senators, they obviously want to keep him in the fold the same way that the Canucks are keeping the Sedins in the fold as well. So I like the hire here. Green, I thought, did a very good job with the Canucks. I just think by the end, they just did not have a good roster. But I think you could argue that Green helped blossom a lot of the players that we see today on the Canucks that have done quite well, including Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Niels Höglander. I think there's an argument to be made that Green is good at working with young players. So I think that's a good hire there. And then he brings in Nolan Baumgartner, who was an assistant coach with the Canucks as well. So when the Canucks fired Travis Green, they also fired their assistants as well, including Nolan Baumgartner. So he was gone too. And then they brought in Mike Yeo. So Mike Yeo was an assistant coach with the Canucks last year. He was brought on actually after Travis Green. He was brought on during the Bruce Boudreau hiring. And my understanding was Mike Yeo wanted to be closer to home. He lives out east. So there's a connection there with Travis Green. I think so. Yeo and Green didn't coach at the same time. I think there's some sort of connection there between Mike Yeo and Green. I'm not exactly sure where or what. So Yeo going to go to there as well. And Yeo, I think, is a good hire. He did good stuff for the Canucks. And that's another thing to keep an eye on. The Canucks will be looking to bring in an assistant coach. They already have Adam Foote, and Sergei Gonchar, I believe, is on a part-time basis. So right now you'll see the Canucks bring in an assistant coach, but the Ottawa Senators have everything in line here. You've got Green, Baumgartner, Yeo. And let's have a quick look at the Ottawa Senators cap situation just while we're here, because I think we will see some moves. We're hearing some names like you just heard, Brady Tkachuk, but he's got a couple more years left in his contract at 8.2, but he's 24 years old. So do you trade a franchise cornerstone like that? If you do, you're going to get a really good return. But I think if you're the Ottawa Senators, you don't want picks. You've been doing this rebuild for a while. You want to be getting, some players right now. Like I wonder if maybe they look at like a, trade like a Tkachuk for Netchis or something like that. Maybe I don't know. Like I'm just saying that could be like a hockey trade. You still got Claude Giroux for one more season at 6.5, not really living up to that contract. Tim Schultz obviously is not going anywhere. He'll be there for a while. Then you got a couple RFAs as well. No one really to mention other than Shane Pinto, Mr. Gambler. If you remember, he got in trouble last year for gambling. We'll see if they bring him back. And then on the back end, Jake Sanderson locked up for a while. That's a good contract, still only 21 years old. Thomas Chabot. I've heard some rumblings about Chabot maybe being on the block. He's a left shot defenseman, so not as lucrative as the right shot. But again, he is, at a reasonable $8 million. And then you got Chychrun as well, who's only on a 4.6 contract. He's a UFA next year. So if you're not extending Jacob Chychrun, he could be on the block as well. You remember how long it took for Arizona to trade Jacob Chychrun, and they got a really good return at the end. They got a couple picks and a few other things as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what they decide to do as far as their back end. And then they signed Korpisalo for a while. Anton Forsberg's a free agent. He hasn't really worked out for them, so we'll have to see what they want to do. They've also got Josh Norris as well, but he is on the injured reserve right now. So Ottawa could be another team to kind of keep an eye out for. And remember, they have a new general manager. They parted ways with Pierre Dorian and brought in Steve Staios, former NHLer. So we'll see what type of moves they make here as well. Let's get to some other questions from you guys. I feel like the Oilers can score a lot off the rush versus Florida. They can make breakout passes. The other thing to keep in mind is power play points for the Oilers as well. They're a team that, does score a lot. So on the PK. So that's something to keep in mind too. Still favor Florida to win it all, though. I do as well. I mean, we'll get a good sense early on with the series. The other thing to keep an eye on is injuries. Obviously, that played a role in the Dallas Stars series with the Oilers. So that's something to maybe keep in mind as well. Like, if there's guys that are injured, how much of an impact are they going to have? But I think this will be a physical series. I think this will be a lot like a Canucks series. We saw a lot of hits there. I think it's going to be close. Like, again, I'm not counting out the Oilers. I've counted them out way too much. I think one of the things that the Oilers have benefited from, and we sort of talked about this already, is, like I said, I think Dallas took the pedal off the floor a bit. They had some no-show periods. You haven't really seen that with Florida. Florida's been pretty consistent this playoffs. Even their losses, they've been pretty close. So I could see Florida, really pushing like through all games, and they're not going to get that pushback from Edmonton. Whereas I think Edmonton kind of benefited. Like you saw Game 6 and Game 7 with the Canucks and Oilers. Canucks had no pushback. Right? They couldn't score. They couldn't get anything on net. That will not happen with Florida. And then combine it in the fact that the Florida's got, really good defense, really solid depth, good goaltending. It's going to be tough. I think the Oilers can win, but I just think that, like, on paper right now, Florida is the better team and they should win. And I think there's something to be said as well. And let me know what you guys think in the chat about this. There's something to be said about being there already. Florida was there last year. They kind of got embarrassed by Vegas, right? They couldn't, they had a bunch of injuries and they couldn't really do much. And Vegas did a good job of kind of shutting them down. Can they do that? Did they learn from last year? Can they persevere? Because the Oilers haven't been in the playoffs in a while. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on there. Allegedly, the Devils are going to make a blockbuster trade for Ullmark or Markstrom. That's all they need. They need a goaltender. They have Jake Allen. I think that's a good backup, but they need to figure that out because that's been their kryptonite. They have not, dare I say, and let's see what you guys think, I don't think the Devils have had a good goaltender since Martin Brodeur. And that's how long that's been. It's been years since they've had good goaltending. Like, I think they had Corey Schneider for a little bit, but he was injury prone, but they need a solid goaltender. The thing with Markstrom is you got to worry a little bit about the age. How old's Markstrom now? I want to say he's like 34. Yeah, he's 34 years old, and Ullmark's a little bit younger. Or is he? Or is he the same age? He's 30 years old. So I would go with Ullmark personally just because of the age. But you get Markstrom, you're in like a win now mode. Because the Devils are in an interesting spot, right? They're still a young team. I don't think they can. They missed the playoffs this year. Also, they need a coach, right? Or did they end up? Oh, no, they got, what's his name? From Toronto. They got Sheldon Keefe as their coach. So that'll be interesting to see what they can do. But you're right. They do need so pieces in place. Let's read this right now, actually. I am curious to see what it would look like for a trade for Ullmark. By the way, we heard last year that the Kings were close on a trade with Linus Ullmark, but it didn't end up working out. Okay, so who are they saying in here with the deal? Is this thing where I got to pay to read the thing? Let's see. They're not going to tell us. Well, let's take a guess here. They got some guys signed up, like, and it would probably be like some of their assets. So, obviously Timo Meier and Hughes and these guys are not going to get traded. They come with big cap hits and they're also sort of cornerstones. John Marino's not going anywhere. By the way, what a great contract that is. $4 million for him. He's playing outstanding for a right shot defenseman. They definitely won that trade from Pittsburgh. Do you look like a guy? I don't think they'd part ways with a guy like Nemec for a goaltender, maybe. But they got a lot of assets. Look at this, Nemec and Hughes. They got Jake Allen signed as well. We'll have to see. And they still got Hamilton signed for a long, long time as well. I don't know what it would look like. I'm not entirely... By the way, they're still paying Ilya Kovalchuk's cap penalty. That's crazy. Stupid NHL. Yeah, so they're going to have... you can see they have some assets. Maybe like a Dawson Mercier and a pick or something because they have a lot of young assets. That could be something that could be enticing to the Bruins. Lane Lambert officially hired as the assistant coach for the Leafs. Interesting. Okay. He was formerly the head coach of the Islanders. Didn't really work out for him there. Wonder what the connection is to Craig Berube. I wonder if they played together. Is that a Tree Living thing? I'm not sure. Devils also said they'd be willing to trade their 10th overall pick. That could be it. Do you trade a first for Ullmark? Maybe you do. To get a good, solid starting goaltender, it might be worth the risk. You could just do that straight up, I think. I don't think you'd have to give them anything else. If anything, I think Boston would have to give up something else aside from Ullmark. Ullmark's good, but Is it worth a first round pick? I don't know. That's the big question. We'll have to see. All right, everyone, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Let's get to some other NHL news right now. Let's go to NHL.com like we usually do. So Pavelski, interesting. Pavelski doesn't intend to play next season. This was it for me. I've known for a while, probably. The plan is not to play next year. We're still moving back at some point here, decompressing and figuring it out. Don't want to say it's official. He's probably done then. It's going to be hard. You can't take a year off at his age and then come back. It's very difficult. So, you know what? Pavelski's an interesting one because San Jose kind of gave up on him and he actually ended up playing really well for Dallas. I'm trying to remember how many seasons he ended up getting out of Dallas. But not bad. Not bad pickup for them because he was a free agent, I believe, too. They just didn't re-sign him. Yeah, he had 5 seasons with Dallas. Pretty good. He played 82 games the last couple seasons. So, yeah, what was it? He signed... Yeah, he was an unrestricted free agent. Pavelski signed a 3-year, $20 million contract. Good pickup for Dallas at the time. So Dallas is going to have to replace him too, right? What other news do we got? Let's see. Devils open up to trading the pick. That makes sense. Combine, of course, we got the draft coming up here too. Not a big, not a super strong draft class. My understanding is it's like the first 5 guys, and then after that it kind of drops. Let's look at their preview of the finals. Any sort of things to keep an eye on? Game breakers. Matthew Chuck fired up to face Edmonton, a familiar rival for 6 seasons with the Calgary Flames. Very true. This is a key thing. Bobrovsky is only allowed 2 goals or fewer in 13 of 17 playoff games. It's going to be tough. Can Edmonton break that? Can they take advantage with McDavid and Draisaitl? Yeah, Florida's clicking at a 23.3% on the power play, which is not great. And then Edmonton first on the power play at 37.3%. Can Bennett match McDavid? That's a good one. And look at that ice time. Pretty incredible. Let's see some other news here if we have any. News. Keep the questions coming, everyone. Paul Maurice is a good coach too. That's the other thing. Knobloch, first Stanley Cup final for him. First season in the league too. That doesn't happen too often where you have a coaching change midway through. Actually, no, I think it's actually the opposite. You see a lot of teams get a coaching change midway through the season and end up winning the cup. Dan Bosma being one. That was one that came to mind. So, I mean, Knobloch has a chance to do it, but I think I think he's one of the first coaches to potentially win a cup being a first-time NHL coach. Like I know Bosma was... I think he was an assistant before. I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is mostly just serious stuff. So yeah, I figured there'd be some more news. Another site I like using, don't take them for the grain of salt, is Hockey Buzz. They always have like rumors and stuff. See if there's any sort of things going out there. So yeah, Lambert, Choyoweth departing. I don't even know who that is. Remember, Manny Malhotra as well was an assistant, I believe, with the Leafs. He took the job with Vancouver to be their AHL coach. That's another one too. Lambert was also an assistant coach for the Washington Capitals for 4 seasons as well. And Nashville Predators. I didn't know that. Okay, well, there we go. Sorry, guys. A little tired. I was up late last night. You know what? I was actually up late last night, guys, because I was making like lineup stuff for my ball hockey, the kids I coach. So I was trying to do like strategy for next practice. So that's why I was up late. Did some schemes. Okay, let's get back to Troy's questions. By the way, Troy, I appreciate all the questions because like you're one of the few guys to ask questions here, and we're definitely trying to keep this show going. Allegedly, okay, so what do we have here? Ty Ginla has been flying up draft boards. He was originally projected to go outside the top 10. Now he's projected to go top 4 to 6. That's true. And then also we should mention that as it was Saginaw who won the Memorial Cup, right? The Saginaw Spirit. Yeah, Saginaw Spirit. Josh Bloom scoring the deciding goal, who's a Vancouver Canucks prospect, which is good to hear. So he's win their first ever championship, beating the London Knights, which is a very, very good team. Like they have a history of being a very good junior hockey team. Easton Cowan being the leading scorer, a Leafs prospect. So there you go. Be keeping an eye on that. I got an idea, guys. Let's look at the daily face-off top free agents. We can go through this again. This was updated May 4th, so about a month ago, but I think it still stands right now. Let's have a look at some of these and we'll talk about it. So you got Sam Reinhart, obviously we'll see if Florida's able to keep him, but here's the thing you got to remember, and I think we talked about this on the last show. If you are going to sign someone that is in their close to their 30s, you do not want to sign them to a long-term contract because unless you're like a rebuilding team and you have lots of cap space, because that contract's not going to age as it goes on. I mean, Reinhardt's probably got, if we're doing the math here, most players have, between 29, players are usually good until their mid-30s. So, if you want to sign someone like Reinhardt long-term, you got to factor that in. So Daily Faceoff is projecting him $10.2 million per season, a big raise from 6.5. So that'll be interesting. Jake Getzel, obviously a big one too. Now, people have been asking me about Jake Getzel and the Canucks. There's that history there with Pittsburgh. Irfan Gaffar, great insider here in Vancouver, mentioned that the understanding is that Getzel only wants to sign with an American team. He wants to stay in the U.S., so that obviously puts Vancouver out of that. And he's also a bit older. He's 30. You want to sign him long-term. I mean, he would solve your problem with Pettersson. You'd have a winger for him, but he's going to come in expensive. They're saying 6 times 8. So a little bit cheaper than Sam Reinhart, but he'll be one that's coveted. He still could go back to Carolina. That's also a possibility. But as of right now, no contract. This is the one I'm really interested in, Steven Stamkos. Which way are they going with the Tampa Bay Lightning? They brought back McDonough, so they don't have a ton of cap space. They're thinking he will obviously have to take a bit of a pay cut because he's 34 now. They're projecting him at 3 times 6.3 per season. So we'll see. We'll see if he comes back. It's going to be weird seeing Stamkos if he's in a different uniform. And you got to imagine if you're Stamkos, I would think, maybe everyone's different. You got to imagine you want to go to a team that's close to winning. So I don't know what that looks like, who has the cap space. Like, I'm just trying to think, like, would you want to go somewhere like New York? I don't know what their cap situation's like. We talked about some of their RFAs. Maybe they're clearing cap space for that. But I don't think they have a lot of cap space. Does Stamkos go to a team like New Jersey? They could use some leadership, right? That would be a good fit. But then, does Tampa want to see them go to like a rival? Does he want to go to a Canadian team? I don't think so. Remember, he had the opportunity to go to the Leafs a number of years ago. He opted not to. Some players don't like playing in the big cities. I can give you a list of examples. Joe Sakic, Paul Kariya. Those are players that are Canadian that did not want to play in Canadian markets. Patrick Kane. I didn't really see a whole lot of him from Detroit this year. But from what I heard, I don't think it was enough for the Red Wings to want to bring him back. He'll get a bit of a raise, or maybe he'll get about the same as he got, but he's 36. Looks like he's got a little bit left to give, but I don't know. That's, again, more of a signing you'd want in a team that has young players. I was going to say Chicago, but obviously he's not going back to Chicago. But maybe a Stamkos in Chicago actually does make some sense. Maybe he's content with the fact that he's won cups, and maybe he wants to help Connor Bedard out. You got Pavelski, who basically said he's not playing next year, so we can write him off. You got Brady Skeckel, who left shot defenseman, but 30. He's going to probably get 7.4. Some team will take a bite. Obviously, defensemen are people want to get them out there. You got Marchessault for Vegas, but he's 34. You really want to pay him 6.25 for the next 3 years? I wouldn't. You got Lindholm, who I don't think the Canucks will bring back. I think Boston will end up getting him. They can afford to get him at center. 7 times $8 million. I would not do that contract for Elias Lindholm. I would not. He doesn't have the offensive prowess. He's good defensively, but that's way too much for a defensive specialist. Montour, right shot defenseman, another hot commodity out there, but again, he's 30. And do you want to pay him for the next 7 years? Probably not. Duchesne will be another one to keep an eye on. Like I said, I was hearing yesterday that maybe he only wants to go to like a smaller American market there. Matt Roy might be an option too. Played really well for Vegas. He's also a right shot defenseman. 5.5, that could fit for some teams. That's something they were discussing. Maybe if the Canucks, wanted to get rid of Hronek, maybe you bring him in for a couple seasons and wait till Willander gets up there. Brett Pesky's another guy to keep an eye on. Again, a little bit more pricey and 30 years old. Maybe not worth it there. Teravainen hasn't really looked that good, if I'm being honest. I would not sign him. Tyler Bertuzzi played okay in Toronto, but we'll see if he wants to go back there. I think all indications are they do want him back. Speaking of which, who do you think is more likely to not re-sign in Florida, Reinhart or Montour? I might go Reinhart just because I think they have a lot of forwards already. But I don't know, man. That's a tough gap to lose. I think maybe Reinhart just because I don't know if they can afford him, I think would be my thinking. You've got Zadorov as well. I would love to see Zadorov back. By the way, Nikita Zadorov, we saw him with Dan Murphy of Sportsnet. They were golfing the other day. Maybe it seems like he likes it here in Vancouver. So I would like to see him stay, but I don't know if I want to give him $5 million a season. I'm hoping there's like a happy medium there. Maybe you could do like 4.5 or something. I don't know. But the problem with Zadorov is like you need a guy like him because he's obviously can push bodies around and he can play really well. But you've already got two really good left shot defensemen. And I think if you're doing a depth chart of the Canucks, in fact, let's go look at their lineup right now. Daily face-off. So if you look at it here, you already got Quinn Hughes and Carson Soucy ahead of them. So do you want to be paying your third pair defenseman $5 million a season? Probably not. That's the issue. It's not that they don't want to keep them. It's just that you already like that spot should be for like an up and comer or like a prospect or something, right? If he was right shot, it would be perfect, right? Because you could bring him back instead of Tyler Myers or Ian Cole, and then you'd be set. But having him as a third pair defenseman, that's the part that's kind of rough. So if I was a betting man, I don't think Zadorov comes back, which sucks because I really liked him. But the bad GMs are the ones that fall in love with their players and they don't, they don't look at what the needs are. Chandler Stevenson, again, might be an interesting option, although a little bit older. Toffoli's 32. I think he wants to get locked up to a team. Like Toffoli might be an option for the Canucks if they can't get like a Jake Etzel or someone like that. Because the number one priority for the Canucks in the offseason is getting a winger for Pettersson. Toffoli would fit that mold, but we'll have to see. Jonathan Drouin, not exactly sure what's going on with him. I think he played okay in Colorado. Didn't really take too much on that. I think Max Domi will be back with the Leafs. Sean Walker didn't exactly light the world on fire with the Avalanche. He's 30 years old. 4.8 is a reasonable contract. And then the list goes on. Dakota Joshua, $3 million a season. That's kind of tough for a third line center. So we'll see. Who are some free agents you're sort of looking at here? Brendan Dillon, there's some ties to the Canucks there. Again, Dillon could replace Zadorov, right? But if he's getting 3.9, you might as well just see if you can get Zadorov for a little bit more. I don't know. Jason Zucker's another name that's been linked to the Canucks as like a, someone that maybe you look at there. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think a couple things to keep an eye on for the free agency period. Number one is obviously some of these guys are going to get overpaid and these contracts are not going to age well. They never do. Like you look at a lot of contracts on July 1st, they never end up panning out. The other thing to look at is some RFAs. Cap space is very, very tough for a lot of teams out there right now. Let's actually look at Cap Friendly and look at some of the teams that are in some cap trouble. So, right now the Flyers, this is not good right now for the Flyers. So if you look at projected cap space, Flyers only have $500,000, and they're not in the playoffs. Like you do not, this is where the Canucks were a couple seasons ago. Like they were capped out and they were not in the playoffs. It's one of the worst spots you can be as a team. And that's where you got to start thinking of selling high on certain guys, right? To clear up some cap space. Vegas has got the same issue. And they've got some free agents as well, like Mantha and a few other guys that they're going to have to make some decisions on. Again, Tampa Bay, they've got $5 million. Do you bring back Stamkos? It kind of sounds like they're not going to bring him back. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But they've got to sign. They've got to sign more players. So the Flyers, they need to sign what? A couple more. Lightning need to sign what? 5 players, right? You got the Wild as well. They've got $5 million, but they're we got to look at some cap issues there, right? Like they don't have a ton of space. Got a couple RFAs, nothing like to ride home about. Like they're going to have to re-sign Brock Faber after this year. He's had a great season. Eriksson X, a guy I would be keeping an eye on too if Canucks were to make a trade. But again, you got to trade someone to get someone back, right? Look at these buyouts. $7 million for Zach Parise not to play for them. $7 million for Ryan Suter not to play for them. So that's why they don't have any cap space. This year in particular, they're really feeling that buyout of Parise and Suter. So they might not be able to do much of anything. The Minnesota Wild. You got the Islanders here as well. They're pretty much equipped, but again, another team that didn't do much in the playoffs. Capitals, same thing. I think the Capitals will be going through a bit of a change. The Canadians, they've always got prospects and stuff up their sleeve. They've got $9 million in cap space. They'll be interesting. Keep in mind, the Oilers have some cap space as well, but remember, they got to re-sign Draisaitl, and I think Bouchard's up in a few years too, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So Draisaitl's got... Yeah, he's a UFA after this season. So they got to... I mean, he's going to get more than 8.5. He should be getting McDavid money. And then on top of that, Bouchard he's an RFA after the season too. So that's what I mean. This cup is really important for the Oilers, especially. Looking at some other teams on here, the Rangers, again, there'll be some guys that aren't back, but they've got $11 million in cap space. You got the Senators. And then looking down a little bit more, you've got the Canucks who, I don't know, I guess they're over the cap. What's the deal here? Yeah, they've got $23 million in cap space, but they have 8 players to bring back. Look at this, 15 players, right? So they've got to bring 8 players back with $23 million. So if you're doing the math on that, because I can't do math in my head, not very good, 23 divided by 8, if you're going to pay everyone equally, that's like 2.8 per player. So not everyone's going to get 2.8. You'll get some guys cheaper, but there we go. And then the most cap space is Utah, which is very dangerous. $43 million. Jesus Christ. You can make a whole team off that. They could go out and get Stamkos and Reinhart and all these other guys. They really could. They absolutely could. And they've got prospects in the bank too. Chicago's another team with a lot of cap space. The Ducks. Look at the Wings. They didn't make the playoffs, but they got $29 million in cap space. Look at the Hurricanes. They could definitely afford to bring some more people in too. So, but some of these teams, look at this. Utah, they got a lot of players to fill out. They've only got 11 players signed. 13 for San Jose, 14 for Chicago. So all these teams have less players than the Canucks signed right now. The Ducks, 16. 15 for the Predators. So they got to bring some people back. So, and they got that stupid LTIR with Tucker Pullman, who's retired and likely will never play another game again. All right, guys, keep the questions coming here. Let's talk a little bit more about what is on your mind here. Maybe we'll do like another 5 minutes, but let's look at some more odds here for the series. NHL awards. Let's look at some of these. So the Conn Smythe Trophy. This is just from Bodog. Let's look at some of these odds here. Connor McDavid, plus 210. Might be worth a bet. If you think Edmonton's going to win the Cup, I would bet Connor McDavid at plus 210. You're getting him at plus money. If you're like me, Matthew Tkachuk, I think the Panthers are going to win. That might be worth a stab at plus 575. Put a little bit on that. Jersey number of winner. Geez, you take a guess here. That's odd. Position of winner. It's a tough one too. Imagine if you just picked even. It's just like, who knows? So those are some for Conn Smythe. Let's look at some other awards. NHL Futures, Stanley Cup. So this is for the year after. This is for next season. You can bet right now of who can win the Cup. Too tough to tell. Playoff series betting. Let's have a look at this. There are no odds for that. What about playoff specials? Evan Bouchard to record 37 points in the playoffs. What's he at now? What are the... I think he's up there with the point leaders. NHL stats. Playoff stats. Playoffs. And... points. So yeah, Bouchard's at 27. So can Bouchard get 10 points? So he has to get 10 more points in the series at plus 650. That's not that's actually not bad. But then the question is like, how much are the Oilers going to score? That's the other thing. Connor McDavid to score 48 points. What's McDavid at now? I bet he's at 38. He's at 31. That's going to be tough. I don't think McDavid will hit that. The 38. 48, sorry. 47 even. I don't think he'll hit it. What do we got? That's Stanley Cup. Playoff specials. Conn Smythe. Don't have a lot of specials, to be honest. I thought there'd be a little bit more. Oh, here we go. Yes, that's Conn Smythe. Stanley Cup Series betting. Series betting. So yeah, the Panthers are minus 135 to win the series. The Oilers are plus 115. But then in the actual game, it's the same odds. So there we go. Game markets, multi only. So yeah, they don't have any of the betting stuff out yet. I'm guessing because the game's not until Saturday. Today's Wednesday, so that's why they're still figuring things out as well. Let's have a quick look at some other stuff that's going on in the news. I'm going to quickly look at Elliot Friedman's Twitter feed, and we can kind of figure out if there's anything there that interests you guys. We had the Lane Lambert news earlier. Here's an interesting stat here from Elliot Friedman. Crazy NHL stats from the Edmonton-Dallas game. Edmonton's 10 shots. Here, I'll just show this to you guys on the screen. Edmonton's 10 shots were the fewest in conference finals clincher. Previous 17 was Boston when knocking out Washington. The 1990 Wales conference final. Worst shot differential by a winning team in conference finals clincher. So, pretty interesting stat there. All right, guys, let's get a few more questions here, and then we'll wrap things up a little bit early today. Let's have a look actually at the points leaders right now by defensemen, and then we'll look at the forwards. Just to give you guys an idea of how things are going in the playoffs right now. So you can see there, Bouchard, 27 points. Heiskanen, 16. He's out. Makar's out. Forsling's the next one at 11. Quinn Hughes is at 10. And then you got Montour at 9. So, yeah, there's a few names in here that are obviously out, but so good for Bouchard, obviously, because Bouchard, he was just an absolute weapon on the back end for Edmonton when they played the Canucks. That's how they kept scoring on Arthur Silovs, was just doing it by the point shot. So as far as overall points here, again, McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, Trocheck for the Rangers, he's out. You got Nugent Hopkins. So this is good for the Oilers. A lot of depth coming through, right? Tkachuk is at 19. Hyman at 18, so you've got pretty much one line. But I mean, granted, I think it makes sense because Edmonton was outscoring, like they were getting more goals in their series against Dallas than Florida was against New York. Verhaeghe at 17, Barkov at 17. So you see a little bit more Florida names here, but then there's a bit of a drop off, right? Like you've got Lundell at 12 points, Sam Reinhart at 12. He's a guy that's going to have to step up for them. Verhaeghe at 17, Barkov at 17. So, yeah, there we go. Those are your leaders right now in the playoffs. So, as we're going to end things here, guys, let me know your pick for the Cup final. Let me know in the comments who you're picking, how you think they will get it done. I would love to hear from you guys. Again, game 1 going down on Saturday. I will be back here on Wednesday. Maybe we'll have some trades to talk about, some free agency. Maybe we'll have a lot of things to talk about as far as the show and everything else. But I will be back here the usual time, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So I'll be here next week. And then the week after, I'll be here. And then it's the week of the 26th, I won't be here. But maybe we'll do a show earlier in the week, maybe on like Monday, just to make up for it or something like that. All right, guys, before I go, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Really appreciate you guys tuning into the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Tell your friends. Try and do the show every week. Hit me up on Twitter as well, at Lynch on Sports. If you guys ever want to talk some hockey, I'm always down for that. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.